What would you do if something you bought at a yard sale slowly began to transform you into a monster? Keep watching to find out how my innocent purchase became my worst nightmare. I had been jilted by my girlfriend of 2 years. We had planned to marry, but she informed me that she'd fallen for someone else. As a means of distraction, I took up going to yard sales and secondhand stores. I was starting to become quite the collector. On one of my recent shopping sprees, I purchased a large box of animal furs. They looked like sheepskin and some other large animals. There was one that had fur I couldn't quite determine. It was coarser and thick with unique markings. Since my house had become quite full rather quickly, I struggled to find room for the box of large furs and put it on a shelf behind my couch. A few days had passed, and one evening I was watching TV on the couch and it had gotten rather chilly. I absent-mindedly saw the pelts on the shelf behind me, and I realized that they would probably keep me warm. I grabbed the top one in the box and wrapped myself in it. I snuggled in to watch a movie and noticed it was a full moon outside tonight. I'd always enjoyed that, especially since it was a romantic time with my ex-girlfriend. As the night wore on, I fell asleep on the couch. The next morning, I woke up, but not on the couch. I was on the floor, and strangely, my clothes were ripped and I was barefoot. Baffled, I questioned what had happened during the night. I'm not one for restless sleep, and although I don't regularly sleep on the couch, I've certainly done it a few times. As the days passed, I had no answer for what had happened that night, and started to forget about it. About a month later, I once again woke up one morning, not in my bed, but oddly on the living room floor. My bedclothes were ripped a bit. Once again at a loss for what had happened, but this time I noticed that my hands and feet were rather dirty, as if I'd been in the mud or something, and there were deep brown splotches on my hands as well. But those brown splotches weren't mud. They were something far more terrifying. I stared at my hands in the bathroom mirror, scrubbing frantically at the dark stains. The water running down the drain was tinged red. My heart hammered as I realized what I was looking at. Blood, dried blood, caked under my fingernails and smeared across my palms. I stumbled backward, my mind racing. Where had this come from? I checked my body for wounds, but found nothing. The blood wasn't mine. That evening, I decided to stay awake. I positioned myself on the couch with coffee and energy drinks, determined to solve this mystery. But as midnight approached and the full moon rose high in the sky, an overwhelming drowsiness washed over me. My eyelids grew heavy despite the caffeine coursing through my veins. The last thing I remember was the strange pelt on the shelf, seeming to shimmer in the moonlight. What happened next would change everything. I jolted awake from the sunlight streaming through my windows, but this time I wasn't even in my house. I was naked, shivering in my backyard, covered in dirt and leaves. Worse still, there were scratch marks on my arms and torso, deep gouges that looked like claw marks. My mouth tasted metallic, and when I ran my tongue across my teeth, they felt sharper somehow. Panic set in. I rushed inside and immediately threw the mysterious pelt into my basement, as far away from my living space as possible. For 2 weeks, I avoided the basement entirely. The strange episodes stopped, and I began to convince myself It had all been some kind of stress-induced sleepwalking. But then came the news report that made my blood run cold. Local authorities are investigating the death of several neighborhood cats found mutilated in backyards across the Elmwood district. Residents are advised to keep their pets indoors until the cause is determined. My neighborhood, my street. The nights I'd woken up covered in blood. The truth was more horrifying than I could have imagined. Driven by a sick need to know, I crept down to my basement that night. The pelt lay crumpled in the corner where I'd thrown it, but even in the dim light, I could see something was different. The fur seemed to pulse with its own life, and the unique markings I'd noticed before were moving, shifting like living tattoos across the hide. As I approached, a wave of hunger hit me, not for food, but for something else, something raw and warm and screaming. My hands began to tremble, and I noticed my fingernails had grown longer, more pointed. The transformation was happening even without wearing the pelt. That's when I realized the horrible truth. The pelt wasn't just cursed. It was bonding with me, becoming part of me. Each exposure was making the change more permanent. But the worst discovery was yet to come. I researched frantically online, diving deep into occult websites and ancient folklore. What I found made me sick with terror. The pelt wasn't from any ordinary wolf. It was from a werewolf, and according to the legends, wearing the skin of such a creature would slowly transform the wearer into one themselves. The process was irreversible after the 7th full moon. I counted backwards, my hands shaking as I marked the calendar. Tonight would be the 6th. I had one chance to break the curse, but it required something unthinkable. According to the ancient texts, I would need to find the person who'd sold me the pelt and make them confess how they'd obtained it. Only by returning it to its original resting place could the curse be broken. But there was a problem. The yard sale had been nearly 3 months ago, and I barely remember the elderly woman who'd sold it to me. All I recalled was her knowing smile when I'd picked up the box of furs and her whispered words, "That one's special. It's been waiting for the right person." Time was running out, and the beast inside was growing stronger. As the 6th full moon rose, I felt the familiar drowsiness pulling at me. But this time, I fought it with every ounce of willpower I possessed. I tied myself to a chair in my basement as far from the pelt as possible and waited. The transformation began anyway. My bones stretched and cracked, my muscles bulged, and coarse hair sprouted from my skin. But being conscious during the change was a torment beyond description. I could feel my humanity slipping away as animal instincts took over. The ropes holding me began to fray as my new strength tested them. By dawn, I had broken free, but I'd managed to retain enough of my human mind to remember what had happened. The curse was accelerating. Soon, I wouldn't be able to fight it at all. The final confrontation would determine my fate. I spent the next month tracking down the woman from the yard sale. I visited every house in the surrounding neighborhoods, showed her picture to anyone who would listen. Finally, an elderly neighbor recognized her. "Oh, that's Agatha Crane. She died 2 weeks after her big yard sale. Sudden heart attack. They found her in that old cabin she owned up on Willow Mountain, surrounded by all sorts of strange artifacts. My heart sank. If Agatha was dead, how could I make her confess? But I had to try. The 7th full moon was tomorrow night. I drove up to Willow Mountain and found the abandoned cabin. Inside, it was exactly as the neighbor had described, filled with occult items, animal bones, and ancient books. In the center of the main room was a ritual circle carved into the wooden floor, stained dark with what looked like dried blood. As I examined the circle, I heard a familiar voice behind me. "I told you that pelt was waiting for the right person." I spun around to see Agatha Crane standing in the doorway, translucent but unmistakably real. Her ghost smiled that same knowing smile from the yard sale. "You probably want to know how to break the curse," she asked, her voice echoing from beyond the grave. "There's no breaking it, dear boy. The pelt belonged to my son. He was cursed just like you, and when he died, I preserved his skin to find someone worthy of carrying on his legacy." My blood turned to ice. "Your son?" "He was a monster, yes, but he was my monster, and now you are too. The curse doesn't end with transformation. It deepens. Each full moon you'll need to feed, and if you don't," she gestured to the bones scattered around the cabin, "well, let's just say hunger has a way of making decisions for you." The horrifying truth was worse than any death sentence. The 7th full moon was rising, and I could feel the change beginning. But this time, Agatha's ghost was here, whispering in my ear as my body contorted and shifted. "You see, I've been watching you these past months. Every kill, every hunt, you're getting quite good at it. My neighbors have been wondering where their pets have been disappearing to." As the transformation completed, I retained my human consciousness, but it was trapped inside the beast. I could think and I could remember, but I couldn't control what the wolf did. I was a passenger in my own body, forced to watch as it stalked through the forest, as it hunted, and as it fed. When dawn broke, I found myself human again, but the memories remained crystal clear. Every scream, every drop of blood, and every moment of terror in my victim's eyes. The curse wasn't just transformation, it was eternal torment. That was 6 months ago. I'm telling you this story because I need you to understand something. The hunger never stops, it only grows. What started with cats and small animals has escalated. Last week, I woke up with human blood under my fingernails. I've tried everything to end this. I've attempted to destroy the pelt, but it always reappears. I've tried to take my own life, but I heal too quickly now. The curse won't let me die. It won't let me escape. And here's the truly terrifying part. I'm starting to enjoy it. The beast's instincts are becoming my own. Even now, as I write this, I can smell your fear through the screen. I can sense your heartbeat quickening, and deep down in a place I don't want to acknowledge, part of me wants to hunt you down. The full moon is rising again tonight. I can feel the change coming. My hands are already starting to shift. My teeth are sharpening, and the hunger is building. But this time, I have a plan. I know where you live. I can track your digital footprint, your IP address, your location. The beast has learned to use human tools for its hunting. Technology makes everything so much easier. So when you hear scratching at your door tonight, when you see my red, glowing eyes peering through your window, remember this story. Remember that some yard sale bargains come with a price that someone else will always have to pay. And that someone might just be you. Sweet dreams. I'll see you soon. What's the strangest thing you've ever found at a yard sale? Let me know in the comments below. If you make it through the night, and make sure to subscribe for more chilling tales, assuming you'll still be alive to watch them. Try to have a restful night, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video, one way or another.